Thank you very much. President Wright, members of the Board of Trustees, fellow honorands, distinguished faculty, members and family of the class of 2001, good morning, and what a glorious morning it is. Thank you very, very much for this honorary degree, which I will indeed cherish, and thank you for inviting me to share this very special day with you. As a former professor and current mother of a Dartmouth alumna, I must confess that I truly do love graduations, and especially in a setting as beautiful as this. It's a day for parents to marvel at just how short the interval is between diapers and diplomas. For graduates, it's a payoff for all the exams, the late nights in the library, and the carpal tunnel syndrome caused by so many hours at computers. And it's a time to celebrate, for graduation is truly one of the 5 great milestones of life, the others being birth, death, marriage, and the day you finally pay off your student loans. I feel particularly privileged to participate in a commencement at this college, one of the oldest in our land. Tradition is honored here, and yet Dartmouth has always been focused clearly on the future. When my daughter Anne was here, Kemeny was president, and he could truly claim having invented the internet because he invented the basic language. You have been our nation's leaders in equipping students with expertise in the newest technologies and having one of our country's finest international relations programs. This is reflected in the courses you offer, the students you attract, the exchanges you conduct, and the values of tolerance and mutual respect with which you are identified. This outward orientation is vital because the class of 2001 will live global lives. You will compete in a global workplace, shop in a global marketplace, and travel further and more often than any prior generation. To succeed, you will require the kind of knowledge that extends beyond mere facts to knowledge of self. I know from my own experience that such wisdom can be hard to obtain. When I arrived in college, not long after Daniel Webster graduated from here, I had one basic goal, and that was to be accepted. As an immigrant with an accent, I didn't want to stand out. I really wanted to fit in, and fortunately in the 1950s, conformity was encouraged. I was at Wellesley, where we were all expected to be young ladies, except of course during that winter carnival weekend when we came here. When we enrolled, we each had to pose for what they called a posture picture to see whether we had, and I quote, an understanding of good body alignment and the ability to stand well. The thing is that we weren't allowed to wear any clothing above the waist, and they actually graded the pictures, and if we flunked, they made us do exercises. We always wondered what had happened to all those pictures until a few years ago when they were discovered in a vault at Yale. While attending Wellesley, I learned much about Renaissance composers and Shakespearean plays and dissected frogs, but I also learned an awful lot about myself, that I wanted to use the fine education I'd received for something more meaningful than table conversations, that I wanted to test, not simply accept, the limits and boundaries of the life I was preparing to lead, and that I wanted to give something back to this country that had given me so very much. I suspect that the same is true for you and your experiences here at Dartmouth. You learn much about what is outside you and much about what is inside you as well. And this is important because from this day forward, you will have to rely not on grades or guidance from professors to tell you how you're doing or where you stand. You will have to rely instead on an inner compass. Whether that compass is true will determine whether you become a drifter who is blown about by every breeze, or a doer determined to chart your own course and unafraid when necessary to set sail against a strong wind? I look around this morning at the class of 2001, and I must tell you that all I see are doers, which is good, for in years to come there will be much for you to do, both here at home and overseas. At home, America's great challenge will be to retain a sense of community and common purpose. As today's graduates reflect, we are indeed a very diverse people. When I was little, my father was the Czechoslovak ambassador to Yugoslavia, and my job was to stand there in a Czechoslovak national costume and hand out flowers. That's what I did for a living. So I grew up highly conscious of ethnic distinctions, and I learned that the history of the Czechoslovak nation that had to be maintained its cohesion despite three centuries of foreign domination. We're all proud of the distinctions that give us our separate identities and loyal to the groups to which we belong. This kind of solidarity is a means of honoring ancestors and a way to inspire the young. It makes us feel less alone and helps us to find for ourselves a unique place in the crowd. But there is also a danger, because when pride in us descends into hatred of them, the American tapestry unravels and the social fabric is torn. The result may be a terrorist bomb in Oklahoma City, an African American dragged behind a truck in Texas, a young man killed in Wyoming for the crime of being gay, or a civil rights leader such as Medgar Evers murdered while still in the prime of life. Yes, we are proud of our group identities, but that is what comes after the hyphen in Czech American, Asian American, African American, Latino American, or any of the hundreds of other varieties of Americans that counts the most. No matter our race or creed, we are all equal shareholders in the American dream. Living up to that principle and valuing fairly the contributions of each other is what Dartmouth's principles of community are all about, and it is the great test our nation must pass in the 21st century. Around the world, we will face other tests, the outcome of which is equally uncertain. Today, America is the world's leading nation. We must be unafraid to exercise leadership in support of peace, in defense of liberty, and to further justice. But we must also realize that for all our power, we can scarcely succeed simply by going it alone. If we want the world to heed our views and follow our lead, we must at least listen to the concerns of others. We must listen to allies who ask us to join in banning nuclear explosive tests and who want us to preserve space as a laboratory for science, not an arena for a new kind of war. We must listen to scientists who say that global warming is real and a threat to our future. And who believe that conservation is the key to a sound energy policy, not a four-letter word. And we must listen to those who argue that globalization should not lead to marginalization of the world's poor. I suspect you're like me. When we buy a blouse or a shirt, we want to know that it was not produced by workers who were underage, underpaid, under coercion, or denied the right to organize. We must not and will not accept a global economy that rewards the lowest bidder without regard to standards. We want a future where growth is shared and sustainable, and where corporate profits come from inspiration and perspiration, not exploitation. I have traveled almost everywhere, and I found that there are essentially three categories of countries in the world today. In the first, people work all day and still don't have enough to eat. In the second, families are able to scrape together just enough to meet their basic human needs. And in the third category of countries, diet books are the best sellers. Confronted with this hard truth, some people simply shrug their shoulders and say it's too bad, but there isn't anything we can do about it. I say such unfairness is intolerable, and we each have a responsibility to change it. There was a time when we could say that we didn't know enough, or didn't have the resources, or were too imperiled by other urgent threats. But today, there can be no doubt that if only we would so choose, we could produce enough food, build enough shelter, deliver enough medicine, and share enough knowledge to allow people everywhere to live better and more productive lives. I don't intend today to put the weight of the world upon your shoulders. That's your parents' responsibility. But I do hope that each of you will use the knowledge gained here at Dartmouth to be more than a consumer of liberty, but also a defender and enricher of it, employing your talents to heal, help, and teach. I hope you will be doers, not hearers only, and that when required, you will indeed dare, as Dartmouth's motto suggests, to be voices crying the truth, even in the wilderness, because your choices will make all the difference to you and to us all. The future depends not on the stars or some mysterious forces of history, but rather on the decisions that you and I and every one of us make. It is said that all work that is worth doing is done in faith. Today, at this ceremony of cherished memory and shared resolve, I hope we will each embrace the faith that every challenge surmounted by our energy, every problem solved by our wisdom, every soul awakened by our passion, and every barrier to justice brought down by our determination will ennoble our lives, inspire others, and explode outward the boundaries of what is achievable on this earth. To the class of 2001, I say again, congratulations, and thank you so very, very much in honoring me today and making me a member of this remarkable class. Good luck.